Veteran television star Bill Bixby has died. The 59-year-old actor-director passed away yesterday at his home in California, ending a long battle against cancer. Bixby's career spanned 30 years. In the 60s, he was one of television's favorite dads in the courtship of Eddie's father.
For decades, fans of The Incredible Hulk have wondered what truly went on behind the scenes between Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby, the legendary duo who brought the Green Giant to life. Their on-screen chemistry was undeniable, but few knew the reality of their bond off-camera.
Well, working with Bill Bixby was wonderful because he was like my mentor. I was a big fan of his before I did the series, and he's an actor, director, and producer.
Now, Lou Ferrigno is finally breaking his silence, sharing heartfelt, shocking, and deeply personal memories of his time with Bixby. From moments of laughter to heartbreaking revelations, what Ferrigno reveals about his co-star will change everything you thought you knew about their iconic partnership. How Bill Bixby survived the unthinkable. When Bill Bixby smiled on screen, viewers saw a man who seemed effortlessly composed, a figure of charm, wit, and quiet confidence. But off-camera, that calm exterior masked a heartbreak few could endure. On March 4, 1981, tragedy struck when his 6-year-old son, Christopher, died suddenly during a ski trip to Mammoth Lakes. The boy had suffered a rare throat infection that rapidly turned fatal. For Bill, the loss was beyond devastating. Friends said he never truly recovered from it. He just learned to function with the pain lodged deep inside. Barely a year later, another cruel blow followed. Brenda Bennett, Bill's ex-wife and Christopher's mother, ending her own life on April 7, 1982. She had been inconsolable since their son's death, and Bill, who had once shared a loving marriage with her, found himself reliving the nightmare of loss all over again. In interviews, those close to him recalled that Bixby seemed hollowed out in those months. His public persona stayed intact, but in private, he withdrew. His coping mechanism wasn't alcohol or isolation, it was work. Bill threw himself into directing as though it could save him. From Mr. Merlin to Blossom, he accepted almost every project, using the camera as both shield and therapy. These weren't just jobs, they were lifelines, distractions that kept him moving and surviving when grief threatened to stop him entirely. On the set of The Incredible Hulk, where audiences knew him as Dr. David Banner, Bixby's work ethic became legendary. Crew members often said that despite his pain, he never lashed out, never lost focus. He was meticulous, sometimes almost obsessively so, about scene pacing and emotional truth. Perhaps that perfectionism was his way of maintaining control when everything else in his life had collapsed. Lou Ferrigno, who played the Hulk, later remembered that Bill treated everyone, from co-stars to grips, with the same quiet respect. He cared, Ferrigno would say years later, and you could feel it, even when he was hurting. What the world didn't realize was that Bill's energy on set wasn't just professionalism, it was survival. Directing allowed him to channel emotion into creation, to turn grief into something meaningful. While others might have seen him as simply dedicated or tireless, those who worked closely understood the truth, that every frame he shot, every cue he called, was part of a silent battle against despair. In a way, Bill Bixby didn't escape his pain. He transformed it into art, and that resilience became the unseen heartbeat behind his greatest work. But could the man who had transformed grief into art withstand the greater storm that is yet to come? Keep watching. The mentor who directed the Hulk. When The Incredible Hulk pilot aired on November 4, 1977, Bill Bixby was more than just the face of Dr. David Banner. He was the show's heartbeat. By the time the series officially launched in March 1978, Bixby had become deeply involved in its tone, pacing, and emotional foundation. He insisted the series wasn't a cartoonish spectacle about a green monster, but a story about a man cursed by his own humanity. That insistence on realism and empathy shaped every episode from 1978 until its finale in May 1982. It was Bixby who demanded that each transformation scene carry sadness, not shock, a reflection of his belief that Banner's struggle mirrored a universal fight for control and compassion. Lou Ferrigno, a 21-year-old former bodybuilder stepping into his first acting role, found more than a co-star in Bill Bixby. He found a mentor. Profoundly hard of hearing, inexperienced, and often overwhelmed by the chaos of production, Ferrigno relied on Bixby's guidance. Long before cameras rolled, Bixby held quiet coaching sessions, teaching him that the Hulk was more than rage. He embodied innocence, hurt, and isolation. He instructed Ferrigno to act with silence, conveying emotion through subtle movements, the droop of shoulders, the slow blink after a rampage. Bixby also shielded him from crew frustrations, stood up for him during long, tedious makeup sessions, and offered practical advice for dialogue timing and hearing aid management. Ferrigno later reflected, "He treated me like a younger brother, and that meant everything." A testament to Bixby's patience, empathy, and quiet mentorship on and off set. Even after the series ended, Bixby's connection to the Hulk universe didn't fade. He returned in 1988 to direct The Incredible Hulk Returns, a television movie that reunited him and Ferrigno and reignited fan nostalgia. The film, which aired on May 22, 1988, wasn't just a sequel. It was Bixby's creative statement. He wanted Banner's journey to remain grounded in emotion and moral weight, and his directorial touch gave the film a warmth that kept it from slipping into comic book cliches. Behind the scenes, he was still the same steady hand, orchestrating every frame with precision, making sure Lou felt confident before each scene. But life was quietly testing him once again. In December 1990, Bill remarried, this time to Laura Michaels. For a moment, it seemed like he had found balance again, a pocket of peace after years of turmoil. Yet only months later, in April 1991, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. True to his nature, he refused to slow down. Between treatments, he continued to direct television episodes, showing up to set when most would have been bedridden. His colleagues described him as stoic but never distant, still checking lighting angles, still encouraging his actors, still mentoring those around him. By June 1992, his second marriage had collapsed under the strain of illness and exhaustion. But even as the cancer spread, Bixby's discipline never cracked. He poured himself into his work, determined to finish every project he started. The man who had once taught Ferrigno how to express emotion through silence was now living that lesson, his quiet perseverance speaking louder than words ever could. But could the man who had faced so much still find the strength to confront a battle that threatened everything he held dear? Stay tuned to find out. When the body fails, final roles, fighting cancer, and set courage. By the early 1990s, Bill Bixby had already lived several lifetimes: actor, director, father, mentor, and quiet survivor. But in April 1991, when doctors diagnosed him with prostate cancer, a new battle began, one that would test his discipline, endurance, and will to keep creating. The disease was aggressive, and despite initial treatment, it spread to his bones, bladder, and liver. For most people, such news would signal retirement or retreat, but Bill wasn't wired that way. His identity was tied to storytelling. It was the only medicine that ever worked for him. So he didn't stop. He kept showing up on set, pale, thinner, sometimes weak, but focused and calm. His crew knew something was wrong, but he carried himself with such quiet strength that few dared to ask. Even as many might have withdrawn from public life, Bixby threw himself into work. In January 1992, he delivered one of his final on-screen performances with a guest appearance on CBS's Diagnosis, Murder. Playing a character wrapped in mystery and irony, he transformed a routine role into something layered and introspective. Observant viewers noticed a quieter voice, slower movements, yet eyes still sharp, alive with his familiar intelligence. The crew recalled Bixby arriving early, reviewing scripts with a director's precision, and refusing sympathy. When asked how he felt, he would simply smile, saying, "I'm working, that's what matters," letting his dedication speak louder than words. But behind that resilience was an exhausting private struggle. The chemotherapy sessions were brutal. His body, already weakened, reacted violently to the medications, leaving him fatigued and in constant pain. Still, he continued directing, juggling hospital visits with production schedules. In November 1992, as his cancer spread further, Bixby checked into the UCLA Medical Center for an experimental treatment involving Suramin, a medication originally developed for African sleeping sickness. Doctors hoped it could slow the cancer's progression. The treatment was risky and unproven, but Bixby agreed without hesitation. "If it works, great," he reportedly said. "And if it doesn't, I'll keep working anyway." During this time, there were whispers about The Revenge of the Incredible Hulk, a new sequel project Bixby had been nurturing since 1990. The script was ready, and both he and Lou Ferrigno were eager to bring Banner and the Hulk back to television. It would have been the perfect full circle, the mentor and the student reunited for one final transformation. But Bixby's declining health made filming impossible. The project was quietly shelved, leaving behind only a script and a promise that was never fulfilled. Co-stars who visited him near the end were astonished by his composure. Actress Mariette Hartley, who had worked with him on The Incredible Hulk years earlier, said that seeing him so frail yet so determined was both inspiring and heartbreaking. "He didn't want pity," she recalled. "He just wanted to keep doing what he loved." Others described how he would walk onto set after a chemo session, his energy low but his focus laser-sharp, directing with the same authority and grace as before. Even as the disease tightened its grip, Bill's creative instinct refused to fade. Every day was a negotiation between pain and passion. He would sit between takes, breathing heavily, but once the cameras rolled, he came alive. His colleagues later said that it was as if he borrowed strength from the very act of creation. That the lights, the movement, the responsibility of directing gave him something the medicine couldn't. By the end of 1992, his condition had worsened, but his commitment remained unchanged. He continued to work on television projects and maintain contact with Ferrigno, still discussing ideas for future Hulk revivals. The man whose body was failing him had become the ultimate embodiment of perseverance, a living lesson in dedication and quiet courage. Bill Bixby never made his illness the story. He let his work speak instead. And in those final months, that work became his most profound performance of all. So could the man who had turned every challenge into art keep defying the inevitable? Or was the final curtain already near? Keep watching. The Death and the Mirror. How Hollywood Remembered Bill Bixby. On November 21, 1993, Hollywood lost one of its quiet giants. Bill Bixby passed away at his Century City home, surrounded by close friends and colleagues who had stood by him through his long fight with prostate cancer. He was only 59. Doctors later noted that he had lived nearly 2 years longer than expected, a testament to his resilience and willpower. Those final months had been spent doing what he loved most, directing. Just days before his death, he had completed work on an episode of the NBC sitcom Blossom, refusing to let illness dictate the rhythm of his life. The news of his passing hit the industry hard. For decades, Bixby had been more than just a familiar face on television. He was part of the emotional architecture of American entertainment. The man who made audiences laugh in My Favorite Martian, cry in The Courtship of Eddie's Father, and reflect deeply in The Incredible Hulk, had touched millions, not through celebrity antics, but through sincerity. His funeral drew hundreds of attendees, from longtime collaborators to rising actors who had been influenced by his work. Lou Ferrigno, visibly emotional, described him as the brother I never had, recalling how Bixby's encouragement had changed his career and his life. Others spoke not of fame, but of grace. Crew members remembered how Bill would personally check on lighting technicians and camera operators, ensuring everyone on set felt valued. Directors who had once worked under him said he led by example, calm, respectful, and always curious. He was the kind of artist who lifted others simply by believing in their potential. In the weeks following his death, television networks aired tributes celebrating his legacy. Yet behind those memorials was a quiet realization. Without Bill Bixby, the soul of The Incredible Hulk could not continue. Plans for The Revenge of the Incredible Hulk, the long-awaited sequel he had been developing with Ferrigno, were shelved indefinitely. The project had lost its emotional center. Banner's story had always mirrored Bixby's own, a man burdened by pain yet guided by compassion. And without him, that story felt unfinished. Hollywood moved forward, as it always does, but something essential was missing. Bill Bixby's death wasn't just the end of a career, it was the loss of a certain kind of presence. The quiet, dependable force that reminds everyone that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it simply endures. But what shaped the determination and compassion that made Bill Bixby unforgettable, long before fame found him? Stay tuned. Bixby's rise, payoffs, and the mentor role. Bill Bixby's story began far from the glamour of Hollywood. Born into hardship during the Great Depression, his family lived paycheck to paycheck in San Francisco. His father, Wilfred Bixby II, earned about $18 to $22 a week, barely $400 in today's value, while his mother, Jane, worked at Magnan for slightly more. Even then, it wasn't enough. When Bill was 8, his father enlisted in the Navy and left for the South Pacific, leaving Jane to raise him alone. They moved from one small apartment to another, often skipping meals and relying on church food drives. That experience taught Bill resilience and a touch of rebellion. At 13, he famously brought a slingshot to Grace Cathedral and accidentally hit the bishop during choir practice. It got him kicked out of the choir, but it also revealed a trait that would define him later: his refusal to follow rules just for the sake of them. That mischievous independence stayed with him through high school and into his years at UC Berkeley, where he studied drama before dropping out just a few credits shy of graduation in 1956. Broke but ambitious, Bill packed up and moved to Los Angeles to chase opportunity. His first real job came at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, where he earned around $40 to $45 a week, not nearly enough to live on. To make ends meet, he worked double shifts as a lifeguard for another $15 to $20, surviving on hotel leftovers. But his choice of workplace was strategic. That pool was where the stars swam: Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, and film executives from Detroit. One day, his charm and athletic build caught the eye of visiting ad men who offered him a modeling job paying $200 a week, 3 times his current income. That offer changed his life. By 1959, he used his last $75 to buy a bus ticket to Detroit for a stage role in The Boyfriend. The pay was meager, $25 a week, and his rent was $20. He lived on beans and bread, losing 18 pounds during the production. But that gamble paid off when talent scouts noticed him and later offered $300 a week back in Los Angeles, his first real break. With that, he enrolled in acting classes at the Estelle Harmon School, where an agent discovered him. Within 2 years, Bill landed small roles, including The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. Then came 1963, the year that changed everything. He auditioned for My Favorite Martian, and producer Jack Chertok immediately told him, "You're not Bill Bixby, you're Tim O'Hara." The show became one of America's top 10 programs, earning Bixby both fame and financial stability. He made around $1,500 per episode, a significant jump from his Roosevelt Hotel days, and quickly rose into television's elite. But success came with a price. The production schedule was relentless, filming 5 days a week with up to 75 setups daily. Still, Bill's professionalism never wavered. To break free from his comedic typecast, he took on riskier film roles. He acted opposite Elvis Presley in Clambake in 1967 and Speedway in 1968, earning respect for his balance of charm and discipline amid the chaos of Presley's entourage. By the early 1970s, Bixby had become both a household name and a versatile craftsman. His turn in the courtship of Eddie's father earned him an Emmy nomination in 1971, while Rich Man, Poor Man in 1976 proved he could embody darker, more complex characters. These roles elevated his net worth considerably. By the mid-1970s, Bixby was earning over $250,000 annually, an extraordinary sum for television at the time. But Bixby wasn't just acting, he was evolving. He began directing episodes of Eddie's father, developing a style known for precision and empathy. That combination later defined his relationship with Lou Ferrigno during the Incredible Hulk years. To Ferrigno, Bixby wasn't just a co-star, he was a mentor. He taught him camera awareness, helped him navigate Hollywood politics, and shielded him from on-set stress. Likewise, he nurtured young talents like Brandon Cruz, guiding them through the emotional demands of stardom. By the late 1970s, Bixby's vision had matured into artistry. When he pitched The Incredible Hulk to CBS, he refused to make it a campy comic show. Instead, he framed it as a tragic human story, one that reflected his own depth. And it worked. That creative boldness, born from a boy who once fired a slingshot in defiance, became the reason Bill Bixby's legacy in television still stands as one of both discipline and heart. Ferrigno's takeaways and the small things that showed Bixby's heart. It wasn't the big speeches, it was the small rituals that proved who Bill Bixby really was. Lou Ferrigno often said that his transformation on The Incredible Hulk went far beyond green paint and muscles. Behind every scene stood Bixby, patient, encouraging, and quietly shaping a frightened newcomer into an actor with purpose. He taught Ferrigno how to express emotion through silence, how to let his eyes carry the weight of the Hulk's sadness, and how to move with intention instead of rage. Ferrigno later called Bixby a father figure, crediting him for every ounce of confidence he carried on set. His favorite episodes, unsurprisingly, were the ones Bixby directed. One morning, Shoot perfectly captured their bond. During a dawn break, a hungry coyote wandered onto the set and stole Ferrigno's massive 12-egg omelet. While the crew laughed and chaos unfolded, Bixby simply smiled, told everyone to relax, and used the mishap to reset the team's energy. It was classic Bixby, calm in every storm. Through endless hours of makeup, green paint issues, and the constant challenge of protecting Ferrigno's hearing aids under latex, Bixby stayed steady. His quiet discipline and empathy kept the set running smoothly. And perhaps, just perhaps, that mentorship explains why, decades later, Ferrigno still speaks of him with such deep gratitude. So what do you think made Lou Ferrigno see Bill Bixby not just as a co-star, but as a father figure whose calm shaped the Hulk forever? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.